think. All right. Hello there out there in Facebook world. How are you guys? I'm so excited because I have a guest here with me today. So I just want to tell you a little bit about um, what's going on because I don't know if you guys know about this. So listen to what happened here. Wisconsin Supreme Court strikes down stay at home order. You hear that, guys? A decision by 4-3 majority has a high profile challenge of the emergency authority of a statewide official during the coronavirus pandemic. God bless Wisconsin for suing their governor and making this happen. The Wisconsin Supreme Court on Wednesday rejected the extension of the stay at home order, siding with Republican legislators in a high profile challenge of the emergency authority of a statewide official during the coronavirus pandemic. And that's Governor Tony Evers, a Democrat there in Wisconsin. So today I have a special guest, and I'm so nice to meet her. Leslie, welcome. And let me unmute you. Let's see. Say hi, Leslie, so I can see if you got a level real quick, so I'm not seeing anything.
Hi, Jay.
Perfect,
Thank you for having
perfect.
me.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell me, what's going on in Wisconsin? How is life now that your Supreme Court has set you free?
Amen to that. I mean, this has been a long, long road. I first started sheltering in place in early March when the governor issued his first emergency order and ordered all non-essential businesses to close. And if you remember, it was originally supposed to be 15 days to slow the spread and keep things from, the healthcare systems from being overwhelmed. But a day or two before that was set to expire, our governor extended it through after Memorial Day. And I think, myself, along with many Wisconsin residents, were willing to do our part, to slow the spread and protect the vulnerable and protect our healthcare systems. But the number of cases in Wisconsin was, not really supporting that level of one size fits all shutdown. For example, in Wisconsin, we've got many, 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 I mean, it's Wisconsin. We've got, rural communities, we've got a lot of farmland, and for a long time, there were many counties that didn't even have one case, but they were also impacted by the governor's, shutdown, basically. Most of our cases are isolated to our urban centers, like the city of Milwaukee, the city of Madison, the city of Racine. Um, but, people just started becoming more discontent.
Mm.
We're supposed to be the land of the free, and we're supposed to be able to have life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And, when he extended things after Memorial Day, people started waking up in the state of Wisconsin and said, wait a minute here. You know, we have to look at the whole picture. We have to look at the whole state. We need to look at the economic impact, um, and see if we can come up with something that's a little bit better. And many, many, many of us reached out to our legislators, myself included,
Yeah.
and said, this is not right. We're watching friends that are small business owners, about ready to shut the doors forever. And there's got something needs to be done.
So you guys you started to reach out to your legislators, and so that's a really important thing. So someone just asked, is anyone going to do this here in Connecticut? Yeah, we got to make it happen. So what? So was there an organized campaign to reach out to legislators? How did you get this before the Supreme Court in Wisconsin to stop this from happening?
Well, there's several Facebook groups that I belong to. Wisconsinites Against Excessive Quarantine, Wisconsin, I can't even remember what some of the other ones were, but I started participating and being active in those. And when and they started growing as
Yeah.
more people became frustrated, with the cure being worse than the virus kind of approach.
Hmm.
And, then there were organized protests, like there was a huge one in Madison, I think like 3 weeks ago, and that started getting the ball rolling. And within these groups, we would share the contact information for our legislators, whoever your legislator was in terms of where you resided in the county and in the state, so that it was easily accessible to people, and people just started reaching out. And I know, my state, one of my state legislators is the Speaker of the Wisconsin Assembly, and he has been very great about spending a lot of time returning phone calls, returning emails, listening to the voices of his constituents. And, he was one of the ones that spearheaded this legislation or this lawsuit that went before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So they're listening. You
That's
have
a
to
great
talk
story. Yeah, so you hear that, guys out there? That is a great story, Leslie. So it was one legislator that really led the charge. We have a couple of those brave legislators in our state in Connecticut. Look, Connecticut, there is hope. If Wisconsin can do this, I'm talking to you guys, Connecticut. I'm talking to you. If Wisconsin can do this, we can too. We have some great legislators. Let's thank Dub Dubinsky. Let's thank Craig Fishbein. Let's thank Robert Sampson. Now, the Craig Fishbein and Doug Dubinsky are taking they're suing the state because of the gun permits that are blocked up now because of one of the governor's executive orders. People who want to get a gun permit now can't because it's, and so they're filing a lawsuit against that. So just saying, guys, we can do this too. That's a great story, Leslie. Thank you so much. So it's a matter of organizing and reaching out. Your voice counts. I say this over and over and over again. People are so busy fighting amongst themselves and upset and this, that. Now is the time for your action. Now is the time for your action. I'm talking to all you guys out there. We have to, we the people. I think it's wonderful how the technology allows us, Leslie, to connect so we can share stories about what's happening in other states and what citizens are doing, what active people are doing, because we're not getting those stories. They're not, the mainstream isn't covering this. They're not talking. Yeah, you get the New York Times writes an article about it, but doesn't get into the meat of what's happening here. And that's the part of the story that all the people really need to start to hear. We need to share these stories and we need to get active. I love it. You inspired me so much with that. So, okay, so how is life? So what was it like, actually? What was it like when the judge came out with his decision, when he squashed he struck it down. When he struck it down, what was that like for you?
Oh my gosh, it was like a huge weight of stress and worry and sadness and depression, fear of the future. Like, one of the things that is driving me crazy is the new normal. The new normal. I keep hearing that phrase. And it just drives me crazy. That's not acceptable. Yes, we need to modify our behavior during this time to protect the vulnerable.
Yes.
But eventually, we need to get back to the old normal. A terrific economy. Pretty much everybody was making money. Unemployment was low. Like, for example, the unemployment in Wisconsin was like 3.1. In the last month, it has skyrocketed to over 14%.
Wow.
So we have 14% unemployment in the state of Wisconsin, specifically because of the Safer at Home.
Wow.
That's crazy. Those numbers came out yesterday. 1 in 7 people in Wisconsin are unemployed right now. And then the problem with that is our unemployment system, which is under the direction of the governor, is so overwhelmed. The system is so archaic. They are 60 days behind with a backlog of unemployment claims. So if you filed for an unemployment claim, at the beginning of March, you're still waiting for your money.
Wow. Yeah, that's a similar story in Connecticut. It's the same story. This is like, we have the same issue where we have an archaic unemployment system. We have a situation in our state where, people can't collect that are entitled to collect and are waiting weeks. So I heard a number of up to 8 weeks waiting for the unemployment to come through. So that's just an interesting scenario. It's the same thing here in Connecticut.
Yeah. People can't get through on the telephone. Now, yesterday, Governor Evers, during his press conference, did finally, I mean, this finally, I guess, hit his radar, and he is allocating additional resources to beef up the number of staff that the unemployment office has. So hopefully, some people will finally, begin to receive their benefits. But Wisconsinites are hurting. We could not continue this shutdown. We just couldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just destroy this state and this country, quite frankly. The cure cannot be worse than the virus.
Absolutely. So have
Now,
business. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that there has been a tremendous amount of activity going on since that order, though,
Nice.
by the court. So several of Democratic-controlled cities, Racine, Milwaukee, Madison, were very prepared for the outcome of that decision. And what I mean by that is I think they could see the writing on the wall that it was going to be struck down as unconstitutional. So they were all ready with their own safe at home orders to extend. So, for example, the cities of Milwaukee, Racine, Madison, and I think up in Brown County, which is like Green Bay, their cities remain closed. So I live in Racine County, which is in southeastern Wisconsin, almost by the Illinois border, and the city of Racine is in Racine County. So technically, I could shop or I could go get my hair done on one side of the road, but not on the other side.
What?
Yes. So let's say there's two salons across the road from each other. One is in the jurisdictional area of the city of Racine, and one is not. The one in the city has to remain closed. The one in the county can remain open. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of anger, a lot of continued negative economic impact to those businesses in the city of Racine. Now, Kenosha County, which is just south of us, they also put forth their own safe at home order immediately following the Supreme Court's ruling. Like that night, within a half hour, they said, that's all well and good, but the city of Kenosha and the county of Kenosha are going to remain closed. However, fast forward to the next morning, they reversed that and said they had to open because their legal counsel said what they were doing was unconstitutional. In other words, if the Supreme Court ruled that it was it impacted state health officials like Andrea Palm, our director of health services, acting director, by the way, it also impacted the local health officials, like the person in Kenosha County, the person in Racine. So Kenosha reversed theirs. They're open for business. As a matter of fact, I got my hair done the other day down in Kenosha.
Nice.
But in Racine, they're still closed.
Wow. So
yeah, very frustrating for those businesses.
So if in one county they figure out that it's unconstitutional, how is the mayor, right? Is that what it is? The mayor doing this in Racine? How is he getting away? Or she? I don't know if your mayor is a male or female. How are they getting away with it? How are they pulling that off?
That's a great question. His legal counsel, the city attorney, is telling him that it's okay. So it's just dependent upon what their representation is telling them. So the city of Racine's corporate counsel is saying it's okay. But, so they're staying close. Now, having said that, right before we went on air, the mayor of Racine did just come out and say that I think he's starting to buckle a little bit potentially under the pressure, that he is going to begin allowing some businesses to open after the Memorial Day holiday, like restaurants at 50% capacity. I think gyms can open up with no more than 10 people. I haven't had a chance to disseminate all the information yet, but it sounds like he's finally, giving in just a little bit. I do have some friends that are small business owners in downtown Racine, and they are devastated. These are people that have been in business for 25 to 30 years, successful businesses, and they are about ready to shutter their doors forever. So this news coming from the mayor this morning is welcome news, and I'm thankful for that. It breaks my heart to see you put your life's work and your life's blood into building a business just to see in 45 to 60 days it get destroyed.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people lose perspective of that's happening to a lot of people, and that's a big deal. The local economy, folks, the small business is the backbone of a strong and independent society, a society that is, economically independent from giant like box store corporations, because it's probably similar for you in Wisconsin, but you could still go to Best Buy in Connecticut while everything else was still closed. You still go to like Walmart or anything like that. I'm thankful that my little organic market was able to stay open in my small little grocer, because that's the world I live in. I hate those box stores. But, we all are subject to living in the environment that we're in, and they're, I read an article that said the billionaires are making hand over fist. They made like something like $400 billion in profit or some crazy number like that. I don't have the exact number at the top of my head, but they were making some mega bucks during coronavirus. Doesn't that upset people? That's a real...
It does. And that's the argument, is that if it's safe to shop at Walmart, Home Depot, Menards, which of course, I don't know what they are in Connecticut, but I suspect it's the same, are packed.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not safe for a small business to open, with a half a dozen people, wearing masks if that's required? The argument just doesn't hold water. And, it's just not worth it, to destroy our economy. We want to protect the vulnerable, which, to be honest with you, I'm in that classification. I'm over 60 years old. I've got several health conditions, but I look at it like not being free, not having freedom. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not. I mean, I'll use precautions, I'll wear a mask. I'll try and keep away from people, but I want to live free. Yeah. I do. I want to be able to support the small businesses in my local community. I want to go camping or, whatever. I mean, for a long time, our state parks were closed, which made absolutely no sense. Yeah. Why he closed the state parks. Because if you listen to the CDC, sunlight, air, outdoors, I mean, those all present environments that are not the most conducive to spread of the virus. It's sitting inside and, regurgitating the same air, if you will. I mean, I think I read somewhere or saw something out of New York that 40% of their cases, and this is setting aside the nursing home issue that's going on, were from people that were sheltering at home. So did that work? I don't know. It doesn't sound like it to me.
Yeah. No, it's like the discrepancies are amazing. And, what also is really amazing is the similarities to the states, too. There seems to be, like, was this, are they getting together and mapping this out and planning it with the antiquated unemployment system that is really intense and strict executive orders that, so here our parks are still closed. The playgrounds have like tape that was all wrapped around them. Although some of the parks are opening up. There's the beaches. We're not like a big beach state, but we are on the shore on Long Island Sound, so we do have some beaches. And those are like, it's all these weird rules about how many cars are allowed to park there, and you can't cross the street from, like, you can't come in on foot to the beach. You have to walk one way down the boardwalk. You have to. I was like, what is going on here? How can we have how is this helping anyone? And then, like you said about fresh air and sunlight, but also the other thing that I think is important is the stress from not of working, from the financial insecurity and what that is doing to families. And now I did a video yesterday of a salon who opened up in defiance of the governor's order. There's a story about that where he said you guys could open on May 20th, and 2 days before May 20th he changes his mind with his council that is operating in private outside of our legislature. He's being sued right now by Representative Craig Fishbein for a FOIA. So there's a FOIA going on. Thank you, Representative Fishbein, for doing that. And so we're going to hopefully get some information. But 2 days before, they have this meeting, and you get this billionaire class, because that's what we have in Connecticut. These are some of the biggest, heaviest hitters in the country are living in Greenwich, in Fairfield County, and they're deciding all this stuff about working people. I have no idea what it's like to run a hair salon or a business, but this poor woman had to wear this face shield and a mask, and they're supposed to wear glass. So I'm interviewing her and I'm talking to her while she's working on something. She can't, her face thing is fogged up. I'm like, this is insane.
I know.
Oh my gosh. I can't. I woke up and I said to my husband, I think we're entered the twilight zone because this doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'll tell you, as like a personal impact. So I was looking for a job for like 3 months, January, February, March. I finally land a job, and I'm supposed to start like the end of the first week in March. 2 days before I was supposed to start, governor shuts down the state. No job. Wow. So, yeah. So I have no job. I can't file for unemployment because I had no job. And, thankfully my employer, still wanted me, or my future employer at the time, still wanted me to start. And eventually, several weeks ago, he finally had me begin working remotely. But yeah, no income, no unemployment. It's tough. It's tough. And I'm just one of 5.8 million people in Wisconsin. Yeah. It's we need to get this state open.
Absolutely. I so appreciate you sharing what it's like in Wisconsin. Here, my husband's watching. Hey there, dear. I love this guy. Anyway, he says 66% of New York City's let me put my glasses on because I can't see the comment without them. 66% of New York City's hospital patients were staying safe at home. That's right. That's a good point. Thank you, babe. So it's we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights for a reason.
We do indeed. Ask your husband if he has the figure for how many or what percentage of them are nursing home or assisted living residents.
Oh, yeah.
Because that number is really high in New York as well. New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
And Connecticut, too. Connecticut has high nursing home. I had a stat that was sent to me. I haven't verified it, but it came from a good person, but I haven't had the time to really go investigate that myself. But somebody did send me a stat in Connecticut that is 70% of the deaths. And there's discrepancies. I just wrote an article about the discrepancy. Our governor says there's 3,500 and something people who have gotten the coronavirus and or died from the coronavirus. And so the CDC says that number is like 500. And then the CDC breaks down like all the deaths. Okay, so then the CDC says, and the CDC numbers are all over the place, and they give, all their things are changing because people will criticize me. You criticize the CDC, but then you reference them. I'm like, yes, I'm referencing them because this is what they're saying. So we got to base it on a fact from somewhere. So the fact is the CDC said that. Whether it's true, absolute truth or not is a whole other thing we could dig into. But for the moment, let's look at these numbers and a discrepancy. So the CDC says there's 500 and something people who have died of COVID, that's it, right? And then they break it down, COVID and pneumonia, or COVID and influenza, and they break it all down for the state of Connecticut, and they do that for all the states, but the discrepancy was so large. I'm like, so what is it? Is it 3,500 who have died of COVID? And the way our CDC in Connecticut are, they list it, so Connecticut's website says it's 3,000 COVID associated. See the language.
Right.
associated. So most people will read that and say 3,500 people have died of COVID. They forget the associated part. So I wrote this article that broke down all of these deaths, and this is what the CDC is saying, and this is what our governor is saying. So how do we have this kind of math? And people are arguing with me, telling me that, oh, the CDC hasn't caught up to the reporting of all the deaths. Really? By the thousands? That the number, I could see if it was, I'd give you a 500 margin maybe, right? If they were in this pandemic. But thousands? So, it's very conflicting information, and this is what we have a constitution and a Bill of Rights for. And this is what's so exciting about Wisconsinites. God bless you guys for standing up. We could do this here, Connecticut, New York, all of these states. We got to contact these legislators. Now, it can be frustrating. It can be annoying sometimes. I did contact one of my legislators, and unfortunately, she's kind of like, just keep pushing. Keep pushing and don't stop, because look at what these guys accomplished. Their Supreme Court they struck it down. Okay, so it was they had 4 judges, 3 of them were in favor of getting rid of their order, and they did it. So now they can pick up the pieces. At least your economy can start to revive itself, even though some businesses may never open their doors again after all this time of being under lockdown. Guys, the economic consequences are huge. Connecticut is unemployment. Well, since I've been following it, has gone up. It's like in 2 weeks, 100,000 people are added to the unemployment. 100,000. We are up to 500,000 unemployed people, and folks are arguing with me that we got to just stay here until Governor Lamont gets a vaccine, which I could get into all that too. But you can't. That's why we have a Bill of Rights and a Constitution, because the government is not supposed to be our doctor. I'm so happy to hear Wisconsin and now Ohio too. I don't know if you heard the news that Ohio Supreme Court just did the same thing.
Yep, I did. Hey, just to kind of piggyback on something you said a moment ago. So a story came out in the media this morning, I think it was, on a Wisconsin woman who had asthma. And she, was having difficulty breathing. So she went to the ER. They tested her for COVID. It came back negative. They said, you've got to have COVID. So they tested her a second time. It came back negative. They still weren't satisfied. So they tested her a third time. It came back negative. And she's saying they reported her as a positive COVID case.
Wow.
In today's, I can't remember which paper it was, but that's crazy. That's padding the numbers. Now, you're aware of the medical coding and the reimbursement issue, right?
Yeah.
So, medical coding, because I'm a former
That's
healthcare
That's right. Please do tell.
Yeah, medical coding is basically how these healthcare systems, doctors, whatever, how they get paid. So you code something a particular way, it comes with a reimbursement of something. Coded a different way, maybe the reimbursement is more, maybe the reimbursement is less. It's my understanding that if they code a patient as a COVID patient, they get an additional $13,000 reimbursement. If they put that patient on a ventilator, it's an extra $33,000, or maybe it's $35,000, but it's another $30K.
Yeah.
If they can use these medical codes. So I've always been one to be cautious and sort of follow the money.
Good, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
good advice. Thank you for that information. So Leslie was a medical coder, and so there's codes and that's another way that they're listing the deaths. There's certain code that they're putting, that's my understanding of how, when I'm looking at the numbers of the CDC and certain codes, and there's some doctors coming out saying that there's it's a very, even if you just suspect and there was no test even done, it's really interesting when you start to follow the money. And that's why at the local level, what you guys were able to do in Wisconsin by getting a hold of the local legislators in your district, guys, we all have that similar. I mean, each state has a little bit different in their constitution and how things work, but all the states have Supreme Courts. All the states have the ability to fight for our basic constitutional rights. That is why we have a constitution. We need not to forget that. When I hear people say, well, the Constitution, we have such a bad history. It was written by racist white guys and a whole 9 yards. I'm like, no. Then you haven't read the Constitution and you don't understand our history, because there's a lot of positive history. We had Barack Obama was our president. A black man was our president. Okay. Women got the right to vote. Black folks got the right to vote where there wasn't before. Yes, we found the country started in a bad state with slavery. That's a terrible, terrible thing. Now we have a modern day new slavery where we're enslaved by a system that thinks it's above the law and can push citizens around that have basic, inalienable, God-given constitutional rights. We are blessed with that. I suggest everybody read that Constitution and the Bill of Rights and know and understand what it says. Yeah, you could say this or that about the founders of this country, but when you read that document about freedom and the ideas that went into it and what that means for all of humanity and how it's set us all, we have the power, these inalienable God-given rights. Everybody, woman, man, black, white, whatever, we all have those inalienable human rights. And that's what our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, it protects that. And I think people have really forgotten. And they think that the government is going to save them. And it's not. The government is going to enslave you. So God bless you, Wisconsin. And thank you so much, Leslie, for coming on. Any last things that you'd like to share with people who are hanging out with us? Oh, wait, my husband came back with something. Where did my glasses go? He said... about a month ago, it was 58%. It was growing each day. So 70 is probably right. So that was his thing on what we were talking about with the nursing homes, with the stat that it was 70% of the deaths were in the nursing homes. So,
that's one thing that has been the same narrative throughout this entire COVID crisis is, you have to protect the vulnerable. Primarily, it's either the elderly or the elderly with pre-existing conditions, or young people with pre-existing conditions. That's who the virus, strikes the worst. So those are the people that we have to be the most cautious about, and, that would include, of course, nursing homes, assisted living, those kind of places. So one size fits all lockdowns is not the way to go. And I guess I would just leave you with reach out to your legislators. Don't stop. Call them. Email them. Encourage your friends and family to call them. Email them. Let them know how you feel. You're essentially their boss. Mm-hmm. They were elected to represent you. And believe me, they want to be reelected. Mm-hmm. So they're listening. Let them know how you feel.
Yeah. Beautiful words of wisdom to leave it at. I couldn't agree more. And it is an election year, guys. And we really got to push. And don't be discouraged because, that your people are being kind of bullyish online. Like if you're starting to question things all of a sudden, don't be worried about that. Just, you want to open your business, you want to talk about this, you need to speak, you need to call your legislators, you need to get active, you need to get involved. Now is the time. God bless Wisconsin because you guys did it, and it was your activism and your, being a citizen doesn't mean you just go vote. Being a citizen in a republic means that you get active and you get the representatives who you voted in there to listen and to hear you, because they'll just listen to the lobbyists and industry if you're sitting home silent, and nothing's going to move forward. And run for office, because at the local level, everyone can. So those are things to consider. But thank you so much, Leslie. I appreciate it. And we have to touch base again. It was so much fun to have you on. I want to hear all about some of the creative stuff that you're doing as well. And let's touch base again and hear about how Wisconsin is going, maybe like in a month or so from now, and see how your summer is going on and how your freedoms are and how the mayor of Racine does and how your local businesses do. I want to keep in touch and continue you know, share stories from around the country from folks out there. It's so great to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Bye, guys. We'll be back later. I have a video that I'm going to be uploading with Michelle from Studio 54 Hair Salon. I hope she's doing okay. And I've got a great video that I can't wait to share with you guys. Till then, bye-bye.